Hi everyone, on today's episode of GP Talk, we're going to be talking about your first apartment, first place to live, right after you moved into another country. I will give you a few tips on how to find a decent place to live. Number 1, avoid downtown. Living in the downtown area of any major city has its advantages and disadvantages. On the plus side, everything is going to be in a close proximity. Your job, your restaurants, theaters, cinemas, everything is going to be close, so you don't have to have a car and your public transport cost is going to be low. And the social life is typically much better within the city center. But the downside of living in downtown is obviously the rent. The cost of renting an apartment downtown in any major city is typically much higher than any other place in the suburbs. And not only it's higher, but you also pay for less because the apartments in the downtown area tend to be much smaller. The cost of living is also going to be higher. Let's take groceries for example. Downtown area typically you will have much higher lease, so any cornerstone will then have to reflect that lease cost in the prices of any groceries. Therefore, your general cost of living is going to be higher. So my advice would be to avoid living downtown. For me, there is just not enough value proposition to compensate for all the negative things. Number 2, find a central point. First few months, you have to jump in between few jobs. I did 3 before I landed one that I stayed in for a longer period of time. Therefore, being in a central point of any major city will allow you to cut down the travel time to and from work. Also, central points, at least on the map, tend to have much bigger public transport hubs, which is also going to give you much more options for your bus, metro, or any other public transport. Number 3, pay attention to general cleanness of common areas. Rent and utility cost is definitely the most important part while choosing an apartment, but do not neglect the general cleanliness of the apartment that you're going to move into. Pay attention to floors and carpets of the common areas. If they are clean, it's very good indication that the building might be properly taken care of. But if they are dirty, that is typically an early indication that there are other problems to come. Vancouver, for instance, has a terrible problem with bed bugs, and that's due to a lack of proper maintenance of the building. So please make sure to avoid any cheap place. Sometimes it just makes sense to pay a little bit more and not have to deal with that kind of things. Number 4, learn about your neighborhood. Look around the building that you're thinking of renting the unit in. Try to assess whether there are any damages, whether there are any vacant buildings or gates with lots of locks or chains or anything of that sort. Typically, that is an indicate of crime. Vancouver is a very safe place to live, but it has a huge theft problem. You can go to police website to find some statistics about the neighborhood you're going to live in. The reason that's important is because of the cost of insurance and potential risk of your bike or car or other things being stolen. You definitely want to avoid that. So make sure to check out your neighborhood from that perspective as well. Number 5, calculate the cost of living. In British Columbia, cost of utilities is rather cheap. My energy bill is only $30, but my strata fee, which includes building upkeep, water, garbage collection, and heating, is over $300. I would advise you on creating a list and calculate every aspect of living in any given apartment. You need to make sure not to stretch yourself too thin. Leave yourself a little bit of a buffer so whenever unexpected cost will come, you will be able to cover it. sometimes cheap rent might not include other hidden costs. Heating is a good example of that. Although very cheap in the summertime, you may pay hundreds of dollars of heating bill during the winter. You definitely want to avoid that. So make sure to calculate the entire cost of living to make sure that you don't stretch yourself too thin. That is it for today's episode. I hope you find those advice useful, and please make sure to give me some indications what is that you would like me to advise you on in the next videos. I will try to come up with a list and then shoot those episodes in a later date. Make sure to click subscribe button so you'll be notified about new episode coming out, and click that like or dislike button and let me know what you think about today's episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.